Hi everyone, my name is William Blair.
And I'm Paul Ziegler.
This is, and you're listening to Battle Report,
A 40K podcast.
Now, 40K is kind of a niche board game, you would say.
Yeah.
It's a tabletop mini game. Set in the year 40,000, it's in the name. But how I got into 40K was more of, I watched a lot of people play it, and I've played some of the games. Like, I played the new Bolt Gun game. I've also played, what's the name of the game? It was, I can't really remember the game. It was one of the first person ones that was set in, not in 40K, but in Age of Sigmar.
Oh.
But I got into the board game about 2015, I think. And I really just fell in love with making the models. I'm not really too good at painting, but also I've only just started trying to paint. And I've really fallen in love with Space Marines. They've really given me, not really a challenge, but I like all their lore.
Yeah, I agree.
Their lore is interesting. Not saying that the other people in 40K aren't interesting. So I love the normal chapters, but also the sub-chapters that they have. Like Black Templars, the Death Watch, all that.
Wait, let's explain to the viewers what are Space Marines. So, Space Marines are essentially modified humans who are like very tall, wear giant suits of armor, and protect the God Emperor, who is like humanity's savior. Just for people that don't know.
Klaus, how did you get into Warhammer?
Actually, I got into Warhammer through you. You were in class one day, and I saw you looking at Warhammer stuff, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I checked it out. I bought the video game, the new one that came out, and I don't know, I thought it was such a cool thing. I got my first models, I painted them, and I love painting. It's so fun. So, yeah.
Now, we briefly went over chapters. Chapters are more of so we have all of the Space Marines. Chapters are more of how they're separated. So Space Marines are also made with something called a gene seed, which come from the sons of the God Emperor. There's 18 of them, to be exact. I think, so one of his sons, Lionel Johnson, is the Primarch for the Dark Angels, more of a Knights of a Round Table-ish faction.
And just so you know, Primarchs are essentially the leaders. So Lionel Johnson is the leader of the Dark Angels.
And I think before we go in, I think we have to talk about this. There are different, during an event called the Horus Heresy, a lot of the Primarchs rebelled against the God Emperor, to where they've made loyalists, which are the people who still fight for the Emperor, and then traitor legions, which fight against the Emperor and are usually corrupted by chaos. The Dark Angels are a loyalist faction that still fight for the Emperor. For a long time, the Dark Angels Primarch Lionel Johnson was thought to be dead until he came back about last year, and then he got his first model for the board game. Another faction that I find really interesting is the Ultramarines, more of like the white bread of the Space Marines.
I think I got this one. I could take this one.
All right.
Well, the Ultramarines are essentially kind of like tactical, like they can do everything. They are mainly based off of like Roman Empire, they use swords a lot and all that, and their Primarch, his name was
Rabute Gilman.
Rabute Gilman, yep. and he is still alive and still kicking to this day.
Another faction that there isn't really much out there about them, but I also haven't read all the books, so there might be, is the White Scars. The White Scars are more of a Mongolian type legion. Their Primarch, Jagatai Khan, we don't really know much about him. We don't know where he is. He doesn't have a model in the game. But the White Scars are more of like speed demons. They love going fast. And sadly, there's not a lot of models for them. But with Space Marines and how the game is, you can basically build an army however you want. Another legion is the Space Wolves. They're more of space Vikings. Since they have really built-up bodies, they have an immunity to regular alcohol. So they had to make their own alcohol, pretty much poison, that they could actually still get drunk. But if any regular human would drink it, they would die. Their Primarch, Leman Russ, died during the Horus Heresy, and they are a loyalist faction that fights for the Emperor. Also, many are perceived, it's not said, but it's perceived that they are the executioners for the Emperor.
Also, the Space Wolves are, how you become a Space Wolf is they leave you out in the forest for multiple days to fight off wolves. If you survive, then they accept you into their faction. Also, they don't see the Emperor as a god, they see the Emperor as a warrior, and that's why they follow him.
The next one, the Imperial Fist. The Imperial Fist are the protectors of Terra, is what some will say about them. During the Horus Heresy, they were at Terra, which is the home of the Emperor. And during the Horus Heresy, they fortified and protected Terra against the traitor legions trying to kill the Emperor, because they saw him as a false god. Their Primarch, Rogel Dorn, is, well, dead. He died during the Horus Heresy, and with this is kind of the fate of many of the Primarchs, because we don't know where some of them are, and some of them are just, we know, are dead. The next legion are the Blood Angels. More of a vampiric legion. They have a curse on them called the red. What was it?
The Red Thirst.
The Red Thirst. The Red Thirst is basically when they become so bloodthirsty that they'll kill anything, even their own teammates. And their Primarch, Sanguinius, was actually, was killed by another Primarch named Horus.
And Horus is the one that led the rebellion against the emperors. That's why it's called the Horus Heresy.
Now, when they have the Red Thirst, they see anyone and everyone as Horus. And they get so bloodthirsty because they want to kill Horus because of what he did to Sanguinius. They're basically the Space Marine's father. The next one would be the Salamanders. Do you want that one?
I'll take this one. So, the Salamanders are a different type of Space Marine because they are more caring about civilians than the others. And if they see a civilian on a planet, they'll evacuate with them. And their gene steed from their Primarch Vulcan, who is unfortunately dead, is they all have gray skin with red eyes because of Vulcan's gene seed and the planet that they grew up on. And then the weapons that they use are mostly flamethrowers, and they have green armor. And yeah. What's the next one?
The next one would be Raven Guard.
Oh.
More of a stealth-based faction. Mainly uses claws and sniper rifles because if they do get up close, they like to do it quietly, but they also like shooting from afar. And a lot of them like to fly, so that's why if you see someone playing Raven Guard, you'll see a lot of flying vehicles and a lot of Space Marines with jump packs on.
Jump packs are essentially, well, they're like rocket-propelled backpacks that allow you to leap into the air and slam down onto your enemies.
And that's about it for the Loyalist factions. We'll do another episode on traitor factions, but for right now we just wanted to get into like the basics. And I think if we talk about the basics, we have to talk about the regular humans, which are a part of a group called the Astra Militarum. The Astra Militarum is basically like our normal military. They're not modified in any way. They're regular humans with some would say the weakest guns out of every faction. But what they lack for in weapons, they have for in numbers. The Astra Militarum has no ends of resources when it comes to soldiers. They also rely on heavy machinery like tanks, artillery, and airplanes. Really, the Astra Militarum are the normal soldiers, the ones that you'll see on any planet that is getting invaded by, let's say, the Tyranids. You'll see Astra Militarum there. When the invasion gets really bad, that's when you'll see Space Marines. They're more of the last resort.
Astra Militarum's lifespan is essentially when you get enlisted, you're expected to live 30 days at most. And obviously it's not everybody that lives 30 days, but most people, yeah, you're dead like within the month. So it's not an easy job, and it takes no fear.
Yeah. Unlike the Space Marines who are born with no fear, these guys have the regular human emotions that everyone has. And they're on the front lines basically the day they get enlisted. Do you want to end it there?
I mean, I think that's
about it.
all we need to cover in the first episode. Next episode, we'll talk about the Horus Heresy more in depth, and we'll talk about the Chaos Marines and their Primarchs and factions. But that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. See you on the next episode.
Press start.